Hey, welcome to your next best step with Brek Cockrell, the locker room for purpose-driven leaders. This is where we slow down, reflect, and we take our next best step through real stories, practical strategies, and rooted leadership wisdom. Thank you so much for tuning in, and remember, even the best leaders need a coach in their corner.
Well, hey, leader, can I ask you something personal? Have you been running from your most painful story instead of leading from it? Have you been managing people on the outside while quietly hiding the chapters you might be the most ashamed of on the inside? If that's you, you are exactly who this episode is for. I want you to stay with me all the way through this conversation today, because by the end, my prayer that you'll have two things you may not have when you hit play. Those two things is, first, permission to stop hiding your story, and a picture of what it actually looks like to let your pain become your greatest leadership asset. Because here's what I know to be true. Most people spend their lives trying to escape their most painful chapters, the trauma, the bad choices, the seasons that almost took them out. The goal becomes, let's get as far away from that as possible. But every once in a while, you meet someone whose life tells a completely different story. And today's guest grew up right here in the Below, raised by parents who were educated, committed, deeply invested in their family and their community, and by every measure, had a great foundation. And yet she still found herself drawn to some crazy places, searching for something maybe she couldn't name then. The streets that could have destroyed her gave her a street level understanding of what people are actually searching for. Fast forward 2016, she found herself living in Thessaloniki, Greece, doing anti-trafficking work, and she met a woman who would change everything. The darkness she encountered there didn't break her. It named her assignment. The woman she met became the reason she built the house. The pain wasn't accidental, it was preparatory. She came back to Buffalo and built a home, a place where women who have been trafficked, exploited, and broken by other human beings come to live, heal, and become overcomers. She calls it Project Mona's House because hope lives there. Leaders, what she is doing in Buffalo and around the world is not just social justice work, it's a masterclass in what value-centered, trust-based leadership looks like when the stakes are literally life or death. Her name is Diane Galloway. She's one of the most amazing leaders I have ever met, not just in Buffalo, but anywhere. And I'm not going to tell you her whole story because she's here to tell it herself. Kelly, welcome to the locker room.
I'm excited to be here today.
Well, good. Thanks for coming and hanging out. Can I say that we are fellow uh, workout partners on occasion? We see each other at Next Level.
Uh-huh.
Shout out to Coach Gino
That's
and
right.
the
We're
whole
champs. We're
crew.
next level boot camp champs.
Come on, come on. I saw you. You got the 16, the
The what?
consistency award
Oh
last
yes.
month.
I'm working on doing that again. Because again, it's just the power of consistency and
Oh,
on I'll be competing in a high rocks race. I don't know if you ever heard of high rocks before, but I'll be competing in that in June. And
no kidding.
at this current fitness level, I might faint, but I'm pushing the finish.
Yeah.
And so
Wow, I love that. I follow you, right, on social media. And
uh-huh.
you and our good buddy Jamil Cruz, you too were the inspiration for me to get my butt into the gym starting in January. And I'm like, if
Yeah, I
those two
mean
can do it, I need to do it. And I always say everybody needs a coach, and even coaches need coaches, and we need different types of coaches. And so
yes.
I just finished up my 35th workout of the year.
Whoop,
My
whoop.
my goal is 150. I want to do
And you're gonna hit
150
that.
workouts. That's 3 a week, 2 weeks off, for vacation. Um, and so I'm on track for that. And I can't tell you, like, there's something about I at this point in my life, I don't I'm not willing to push myself to pain, physical pain.
Mm-hmm.
I need a coach. I need Coach Lou, you know, Lowe's. I need a coach that's going to get up behind me and say, "Come on, BC, work."
And I think I don't know. First of all, I was so happy when I saw you on when they posted you on social media. I was like, and so, but again, the coach, every coach needs a coach, right? And I have a very strong personality, and Next Level Boot Camp can handle me. Like
Yes.
that is my place. I'm not, I'm not, I'm just Kelly Diane when I get there. I'm not in charge of anything.
I
I don't.
know it.
My goal every single day is just to make it to those yellow doors and let them handle the rest.
Come on.
That's
Those
it.
yellow, those damned yellow doors. Like, come on.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh man, I've cussed at them going in, but I always feel good going out.
I still roll my eyes when I'm walking out the
Oh,
door.
yeah. Wow. Kelly, it's so good to have you on here. We connected through a friend of ours several years ago. I'll never forget, like the first time we sat down over a cup of coffee and you just shared your story. And I, I was blown away because, oftentimes when we get further down the road and we get kind of cleaned up a little professionalism, little like people have no idea the backstory. And that's one of the things that I just kept relearning over and over, like along the way, being here in the city of Buffalo, is you just can never assume who you see today that you kind of know their backstory, what they've gone through. Because I've been
Yeah.
surprised hundreds of times. In fact, I love being surprised. At this point, I try not to assume, but I'll never forget some of the things. Could you? We want to talk about some specific things in today regarding leadership and but just as a little bit of a backstory, Buffalo's your roots, great family. Tell us a little bit about your background and how Buffalo has impacted who you are today. And then we'll kind of jump into some other questions along the way.
Well, 80s kid, born right in the heart of Buffalo, New York, to two amazing parents. I grew up in a very, very large family on both sides, but mainly my mother's side. And it's not like the type of family where y'all don't see each other. We got together every Friday. My whole
Mm,
life, it's still to this day, right?
really?
And so, and being a part of a close knit family, cousins feel like siblings, and aunts feel like moms, and it's just my village was 100% activated. And I had a really great childhood. I played outside. I drank out the faucet. I got yelled at like, "Don't keep running in and out of my house." And my family is mainly housed in an area of Buffalo called Central Park. So I grew up on the street with my other cousins called Halbert in between Leroy and Dewey.
Mm,
And all of our family, we all kind of started out in one house. If you were building a family, you moved into that house. And when my parents got married and lived there for a little while and got their finances up, then they moved on Main and Humboldt. And but my parents still were building their careers. And my mom ended up being the chief of mental health at the Buffalo Psych Center. My father was involved heavily in politics and was the president of the Rainbow Coalition here in Buffalo, founded by Jesse Jackson. I woke up in my house and it'd be civil rights leaders in the living room,
wow.
So it's so my parents made sure that I understood that that I was powerful, I was dynamic. I was always different than my other siblings though. Or they were all stellar athletes.
Mm.
Um, I chose to play the piano and play chess. And one of my biggest things that I wanted for Christmas was like, can I have a new encyclopedia set and a childcraft book? And can you get me a teaching set? And my parents got that for me. I had my own chalkboard. And so
No way.
somewhere between 7 and 9, I opened up a tutoring center in my house. And my aunt, Eleanor Gray, she was teaching English at McKinley High School. And my other aunt, Miss Lofton, she was teaching at Westminster. And they would bring me school supplies. Like they would buy me like grade books. And so I would grade the kids in the neighborhood. And we had
Wow.
Friday and Saturday school I mean, even in the summertime. And this
What?
is for years. Yes. I was
Wow.
serious. My father would go pick up kids and bring them here. I set up one room in my house, like a music studio. I set another room up in my house as like a science lab, and then I had
Wow.
another classroom. And so, and I would just take students there, and I just always felt like whatever I learned, I wanted to give.
Mm.
And I've always been like that. And so that's pretty much who I was my entire childhood until January 5th, 1998. And that's when my brother, he's biologically my cousin. His mother is my aunt Diane, who I'm named after, who
Mm.
was very instrumental in my raising. So Kelly Diane, and I mean, she basically raised my whole family. She is the matriarch of our family.
Wow.
But um, Mikey was chased down and shot for the price that the guy Jay Bird at that time, from what I was told, was paid was I think $250 to chase him down and kill him. And so after that, I remember that was on a Monday, and I
Mm.
found out around 3:30 p.m. that he was dead. And after that, I just I didn't know at the time. I wasn't able to name it, but it was grief.
Mm.
It was grief. So I started fighting. I started being promiscuous. I started only talking to and dating boys that were in the street. Some like
Mm.
my childhood boyfriend, he is now deceased. He was also shot and killed. Um, he never even got past his freshman year in high school. He only
Wow.
graduated from the 8th grade, um, and I wasn't supposed to be talking to him. My parents was like, "Kelly, no,"
Right.
and I was like, "But I love him," and so that started with skipping school, fighting outside of school. I remember my first charges I got when I was 15 years old for bringing 40 people to a girl's house because we got to arguing and fighting at the church picnic. And I was like, I'm gonna see you later. And
Mm.
I went there and we took 12 taxis from Central Park to the Delavan area to fight. And that was like the first time I ever got arrested and had charges. And I still wasn't done. That wasn't enough to change me, really. And then the closer I got in high school to graduating, it was a girl. Her name is Joanna Rozier Johnson. And I went to Hutch Tech. I graduated from Hutch Tech High School. And she said, Kelly, and I won't say the name, but she was like, Kelly, at this school, we come here to learn. If you want to do all that fighting and stuff, you need to go to beep, 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 beep school. And so, uh, and I was like, okay. And I never forgot that. And I actually posted that online recently and
Mm.
just thanking her for the accountability that she gave me back then. She was like, you're
Wow.
so smart. You have a magnetic personality, but you are not applying yourself. Like, if you
Mm.
want to be in the streets, just be in the streets, but you can't be in the streets and come to hashtag.
Mm.
Like, so,
Wow.
um, uh,
So there was a standard plus support
yeah,
I
I would
mean,
say that
there
accountability.
there was a standard like of accountability, like, hey, you need to here at Hutch Tech, we ain't playing. And then there was some hard love support, though. They just, the fact that she would challenge you to even speak into that versus just
Hmm.
like, well, hey, that's just going to be her. She's going to while and like whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She called
Wow.
me out. She definitely called me out,
Mm.
and I remember that again. Even that wasn't enough to change me. I think
Mm.
what really started to change me is when I got to my senior year in high school, and all my friends were getting acceptance letters to college, and I'm like, oh shoot, well, I don't have that. So I took the ASVAB exam, tested really high, took my SATs, scored so high that I'm getting letters from all colleges. Army recruiters are coming to my house, and I'll get accepted only to one school. And I only applied to that school because it said fee waived at the top because I had already been asking my mom, can I have $200 and $250 for this school, knowing I didn't have the grades because I didn't care. What people don't realize is that I graduated it was only one person at the bottom of the class lower than me. And this is like hundreds of people.
That's
So for
crazy.
instance, if it was 100 students at the class, I was 99.
You and 90, 99.
Yeah, it
Wow.
was only I'm not gonna call my friend out, but he was lower than
Yeah.
me. But now that I'm older, I'm pretty sure he was a trafficking victim, like a
Wow.
labor trafficking victim.
No
And that's no
kidding.
lie. I
Oh,
really
wow.
believe that. I really believe he was trafficked in a local restaurant as a labor trafficking victim, him and his family. And so he has an excuse to be at the bottom of the class.
Right.
So I ended up graduating. And it was close.
Yeah.
It was close. But then I made myself a promise once I got accepted into that school, and not myself a promise because myself wasn't enough at that time for me.
Mm.
I made my father a promise,
Oh,
and I
wow.
said, Dad, when I go down to Virginia and I go to this school, I'm not gonna fight. I'm not gonna curse. I'm gonna mind my business. I'm gonna do my work. And if I choose to date anybody, I'm not going to bring anybody home to you that can't do better, the same or better than you and in my
Mm.
life. And I've kept that promise. There was one time a girl started with me and I called my dad like, Dad, I swear I didn't do it. And I managed to learn how to control my temper out of the love for my father.
Mm. Wow.
And then that love for me, because I'm a faith-driven leader, then that love for my earthly father grew into a love for my heavenly father.
Mm.
And from there is where I started to really not just change but transform
Yeah.
and into a person that is almost unrecognizable from the early 2000s.
Wow. Kelly, I've heard bits and pieces of that, and it's amazing to me every time you remind me of that journey. And what do you, is there, looking back now, was was there something that you were, as a teenager, something that you were searching for, going to the street, like the trauma, definitely trauma, like that was trauma induced, like the reactionary, like there's trauma, but even in the midst of that trauma and not having words to be able to say that, like grieving and the loss of a loved one that was that close to you, was there one or two things that you think, looking back now, that maybe leaders can maybe give language to, like maybe they have it process this, maybe it's a younger leader, somebody that might be listening, is there uh, something that you would say, I was searching for that I didn't really find until, as you were saying, you took those next steps?
Yeah, well, I think if I had to say to give language to two of the things is it would really be one thing, and I think that is I didn't understand my identity outside of my pain.
Mm.
I so let's say like you break your arm, right? Let's say everybody starts calling you like, oh, broken arm Kelly, broken arm Kelly, broken arm
Mm.
Kelly. Over time, you start even after your arm has healed and you're using your arm again. There's no separation between Kelly and broken arm.
Mm.
And so some people we don't realize that even trauma and even pain and all those different things, like, do I still miss Mikey today? Like that's him above me. Idris Wajid drew that for me,
Mm.
and my family. But the other days that I still miss him, absolutely. But does it hurt like it did in 1998? It absolutely doesn't. And so if I want to grow and I want to be all that I believe that God has called me to be, then I have to understand that my pain needs to pay me, and my trauma is a stumbling block at one point, but that stumbling block should eventually turn into a stepping stone.
Mm.
And so for me, I just believe that if you have had a hard, if you started off a little rough, like I did, just you have to be able to compartmentalize and realize that what happened to you and who you are two different things.
Mhm.
And what happened to you, I believe that it can be used and it should be used because nothing is wasted. You learn something from everything.
Yeah.
And if you look at some of the things that you lived through and have overcome, you'll find probably this beautiful line, this beautiful
Mhm.
thread
Yeah.
that's like sewing your story together. And so all these different things that you're just like, how are all these things going to make this beautiful masterpiece? It's just one beautiful thread. And I believe in my life, it was God just saying, like, listen, all right, the pain, the
Yeah.
abuse, the sexual violence towards yourself, all these different things, the heartbreak, the hurt, but also the beautiful moments. They all make this leader that I am here today.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I so appreciate you sharing that identity, it's so important because I mean, I work with leaders and mostly, in their 30s, 40s, 50s on up, right? And man, when I really start doing the root work, coming back to, and one of the things that I talk about is like I'm a value-centered leadership development coach. Like we if let's do the root work, and if we do the root work, I believe the fruit will work, right? And so, but most of us, we just pay attention to what we're producing and how we're performing, and we ignore how we're becoming, right? And when we go back and we pay attention and we and here's why it's so hard is that because what we produce and who we're becoming like that's we get instantaneous like okay, if I work hard today and if I make 10 calls, then my boss is going to be pleased with that, or if I make 5 sales, or those are immediate, but who we're becoming, oh, that's sometimes granular. That's like sometimes watching ice melt. Like there's not a lot of fun in that, but it's so important for us because it who we're becoming is all about, you said it, our identity. And if our identity is connected only to how we perform and what we produce and not who we actually are, then it's a false identity. And
Yeah, you
so,
can't be, your value can't be assigned to what you do
yeah.
because if and that's why so many people when they retire they lose themselves
Hmm.
because their entire identity is based upon performance.
Yeah.
I did good at work. I climbed this ladder. I did this. I did that. And so
My
now,
titles,
you're,
my
yeah, and I'm
position.
and stay-at-home parents go through that as well. Their whole identity has been raising children. Now
Hmm.
these children go off to college, and now marriages are starting to fall and fail and break. Or now this child has a family of their own. Your identity is tied up into what you do, but not just who you are.
Hmm.
Like we're so much more than employees, leaders, parents. Like there's a Kelly that needs to be tended to
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
acknowledge. And so until I had a firm, and I'm still learning all that I am.
Right. And that
I,
and
I'm
that journey
still
is
I'm
not
still learning.
complete. There's
No, it's
no
not.
destination. While we still were breathing, the best version of me is still yet out ahead.
Yeah,
There's a
absolutely.
better version of me being pops, dad, husband, friend, leader, coach. I still believe in front of me, not behind me. And
Mhm.
I love the fact that you talk about leadership because I believe that everybody is a leader. Now, there's various levels of leadership, but I believe in scripture from right out of the Genesis story that God has given us a life. He's breathed life into us, and that we get to steward the life that we have. And I define leadership as it's leadership is a stewardship, it's temporary, and we're going to be held accountable, right? And so sometimes, I remember when I was listening to John Maxwell tapes and it was all about leadership and I didn't have anybody to lead. It was just me, right? And I realized like, man, I need to pay attention to this because one day if I, one day maybe I'll have somebody to lead. And then I got into coaching, and then I got 12 guys, 12 high school boys that aren't too much younger than me, right, to lead.
Sure.
And so I do believe that it starts out with like every day we wake up, you're CEO of Kelly, Diane, right? Uh, I work with a group, and it's a large organization. I said, "Hey, who's your boss? Who do you work for?" And they all answered the organizations. I said, "No, you first and foremost work for yourself. They're your biggest client, but you are CEO, and
That
we're
I'm
a
gonna use
hundred
that.
percent in control of that, right?" And so, kind of that is a foundation. So, Kelly, fast forward us to I know on online, and I know part of the story. You started working in sex trafficking globally. Kind of, could you talk to us a little bit about how you got there, and then fast forward because I'd love to talk about Project Mona's house and kind of the greater story of what you're doing here in Buffalo, but also not just
Yeah.
here in Buffalo, but all over the place.
Yeah, well, a little bit over a decade ago, I went on my first mission trip and to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And at that time, I just knew for sure that the Lord was calling me to the nations. I just knew that my reach was bigger than New York, it was bigger than Virginia, it was bigger than the United States. It doesn't make me better. It just means that wherever I'm called to, I felt called to certain areas in the
Mm,
world. And so, I ended up fasting for about 40 days. And during that time, I said that I really believe that the Lord put a certain region of the world in my heart. And we had already been like developing a covenant family relationship with a man by the name of Pastor Elisha Samvedin in Hyderabad, India. He has since passed away. And I was just like, man, I really want to work with children who are orphans, maybe victims of human trafficking and different things like that. And so I went to India, and it was only honestly supposed to be, at first it was supposed to be 30 days, and it was supposed to be 3 months, and it never ended. It never stopped.
mm,
And so I thought and I found my purpose. And then I wanted to also learn to work with women adults who have been victims of human trafficking or any type of sexual violence or exploitation. And I didn't know anybody to talk to. I ended up talking to this guy named William Westgate, and he was like, "Hey, Kelly, have you ever heard of Christine Kane at 821?" And I
mm.
said, "No." I went to the website. I filled out the application. I literally filled out the application so many times, and I will always quit at the end because I'm just like, this is so out of reach for me. Like, I
Wow.
probably would never get accepted. And I filled out the application. They called me within a week, and they were just
Mm,
like, can we interview you? I'm like, yeah. And they gave me some warnings about what life would be like in Greece. And long story short, I moved to Greece. I met a woman by the name of Ramona from the Dominican Republic. She was trafficked into Turkey, and that was shortly after the 2015 Syrian refugee crisis.
mm,
And she ended up in a refugee camp. And H21 did a lot of work in refugee camps. They allowed us to visit the refugee camps because they split us up into two groups. You either worked in a shelter or you worked in the refugee camp. But if you worked in the shelter, you could also volunteer in a refugee camp, just not the other way around. And so when I came to Greece straight from Guatemala because I had been living
wow.
and working in Guatemala. So I had brushed up on my Spanish and I was just using it. And so Ramona, she only spoke Spanish at the time, and we developed a friendship. She helped me better my Spanish, and I got to know a little bit about her husband, and her children. And one thing that I asked her one time was like, I know how you argue with your husband and how he doesn't believe that you were trafficked because he doesn't know about it. Like, how are you still able to be peaceful and like you're not arguing and all these different things? And she was like, Kelly, like I'm a believer. And I was like, oh, well, I'm a believer too. And she was like, well, do you know what Romans 8:18 says? And I was like, No, I don't know. Like the whole Bible by heart. And so she started saying it in Spanish. And towards the end of it, I recognized, oh, this is the scripture that says, "For I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in Christ Jesus." And how I interpret that, how I communicate that message to people nowadays is that if you are alive, you have already survived 100% of your worst days, and that tomorrow will be better than today, and 2 days from now will be better than tomorrow.
Mm,
And so, for me, I always knew, not always knew, but I knew by that time that I wanted to come back to the United States and open up a restoration home for human trafficking victims. I thought that it was going to be in Lynchburg, Virginia, where my church was.
hmm
But I found out that the place that I was from, Buffalo, didn't have a place, not even one place that was just specifically for women who have been victims of human trafficking and or exploitation. And so I opened up Western New York's first restoration home for human trafficking victims, and I was going to call it House of Virtue, but I decided to call it Project Mona's House because I wanted to be able to share Mona's story
mm,
with individuals because for me, I think that she embodies hope. And and I know that like I built all of my curriculums and my entire program on the science of hope.
mm,
And I understand that like even like my holy book tells us that hope deferred makes the heart sick. And so over and over and over again, whether you're a leader, whether well, a leader of a corporation, a leader of your life, whether you have people dependent on you or whether you just have yourself to survive for, I learned that over time, if you're continuously disappointed and the bottom drops out and you feel like you cannot even catch a break, it does something to the heart of man. And a lot of the people that I experience, um, I get to experience in this beautiful lifetime that move into Project Runner's House, like their hope is so low. Their hope
mm.
is low. And so we do life together, and I believe that community heals. And so people are able to move into Project Mona's House, coming as victims, transformed into survivors, and by the time they leave, they're overcomers because now they got their hope back. And
Yeah.
for me, Mona is the epitome of hope, which is why I named it after her.
Wow. I love that. So Kelly, one the kind of my baseline framework that when I work with leaders is I call it EDOT. You know, you've heard of it, DOT, right? But this is EDOT, and it says everything depends on trust. And trust is the soil that all good things grow out of. If you don't
Hmm.
have trust, it's hard to have empathy. It's hard to have integrity with ourselves. If we're not trustworthy and if we're not building trust, if we're not paying attention to the soil and like, hey, uh, what's it like on the other side of me, right? Do they trust that I'm going to show up the same way every time? Can I be trustworthy that I'm going to do what I say I'm going to do, right? So I love the fact that you've got um, Mona's house, and they come in, these women who come in who have trust has been completely broken in their lives. How do you, over the course of the time, and maybe explain maybe some of the things that allow them to walk out being transformed, but how are you able to rebuild trust with these women so that they can not just survive their past, but actually walk out thriving?
So Project Mother's House, I just want to say, like, we are not your typical organization. People
I know
ask us
that.
why and how we get the results that we do. And I I I think we have just a dynamic team. Number
Mm,
one, I'm gonna be a tough love girl. It's just how I give it up, you know. And then you're gonna have our house mom and our Freedom Center manager, who are very loving and soft and gentle and nurturing, and they
mm,
feel like home and they're there for a reason. I think that the reason why people who have trust issues trust us is number one, it takes time and we are consistent.
mm,
You cannot build what you cannot build on a foundation where it's just like, are you going to be here today? You're not going to be here tomorrow. Are you going to love me through this? Are you going to? So the thing is, like, We don't say, all right, you mess up one time, you're out of here.
Mm.
When we talk about it and we try to figure out ways around those things. And so you build up trust, number one, through consistency. And
Mm.
I think you also build up trust through transparency, not just honesty, but transparency.
So what's the
And for those,
difference?
I believe honesty is saying like, hey, Kelly, did you take that candy? No, I did not take that candy. But transparency says I was there when the candy was taken and Brek took it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Which
Honesty
usually is the
is
case.
so for those who still may be wondering, so honesty is just when you tell the truth.
Yeah.
But transparency is when you give the full picture. You give it the
Mm,
context.
that's really
And
good.
so, and the thing is, you might know that. And so for us, we had the Buffalo Bills Foundation come to the center the other week, and the women were so nervous. And I interrupted the program. I delayed their start, and I had a conversation with them. And I told them just because they work for the Buffalo Bills, and they might know a Josh Allen, or they might know a Poyer, or they might know Keon Coleman. God bless his soul. Um,
Come on. I'm
um,
pulling for him.
yeah, we all pulling for it. We need, amen. So just because they know them and they might be associated with people that you think are way up here,
Yeah.
or even you think there is no difference between them and you.
Mm,
And so when the women were listening to me, and I said, listen, I want them to be here so that y'all can set your gaze. You can set your gaze on what is possible. So when I told the girls one of my dreams is to open a hotel, right? And they were like, well, can I be one of the maids? I'm like, well, how about you be over facilities?
mm,
You know. and
yeah.
so and so when the women from the Bills Foundation sat down with them, they just I put all their chairs in a line, and the women from the Bills literally took their chairs up and just started putting them at different tables with the women. And the reason why is they wanted to let them know I got relationship problems just like you. I have financial problems just like you. My children act crazy just like all people's children act crazy sometimes. And so again, I think trust can be built through transparency. So they understand, okay, well, Kelly got her heart broken 2 years ago and
Mm,
she's been working to heal it. And she didn't quit. She didn't stay. I'm not going to work anymore. I'm not going to do anything. And so I think letting people like this facade that I think some people put on, um, if they were to take that off and just say, hey, I'm just like you, then we might have more transformation. Because now they're looking at you and saying, oh, if you did it, I could do it again. It's just like next level boot camp. When you go in and you find a body type up on that wall that look how your body type used to look, and you see that they put in the hard work to be like that, it
right.
lets you know that the
Yeah.
door and the access for you to be who God called you to be, that
Yeah.
door is also open up to you.
Yeah.
And so that's how we that's one so we build trust through consistency, transparency, and the last thing is a part of our culture is called celebration. And
Mm,
so people wait until something big happens in their life to celebrate.
mm-hmm.
You have to celebrate small wins. Why? Because you have to understand, like, even the day and age that we're in right now, you have people addicted to these devices that scrolling. It's called screen fixation. It's a constant dopamine released in your bloodstream over and over and over again. So when somebody says, "Oh, well, this happened today. Oh, I didn't miss this bus, or I got money for this, or I got my learner's permit, I got ID," we make them ring the breakthrough bell because
Wow.
now that breakthrough bell signals to everybody in my office in the Freedom Center that something great just happened. We don't even need to know the details, but we just start screaming to the top of our lungs.
Oh,
"Ooh." And
that's
what that
awesome.
does is it signals your brain to release dopamine, and now you get used to winning.
Yeah.
And so now I'm gonna keep coming back here because associate the Freedom Center and Mona's house with me winning, and that feels good.
Mm,
So,
love that. Well, neurologically, I've learned this through is that our brains, when we go into spaces, new and old, but we walk into spaces, it's asking two questions. And the first question that our brain is burning calories to answer is, am I safe? Am I safe?
hmm
The second one is, am I loved? And that manifests itself in my seen, heard, validated. And what it sounds like is that when ladies walk into Mona's house, you guys answer those two questions. Am I
Hmm.
safe? Yes. Am I loved? Absolutely. But here's the thing, Kelly, is that you know this, like it's hard for us to lead people to safety if we haven't found any ourselves, right? And how did your healing? I know it's a process, we're still on this journey. How did your healing help set the foundation for these women's healing?
We don't call our women survivors. We call them
Mm,
overcomers. We say people
mm,
come in as victims, they're transformed into survivors, but by the time they leave, they're overcomers. And
yeah,
so their
love
first
that.
week, they had their first week at Project Mona's House. So for those listening, we have two different parts. We have our residential program for women who are victims of human trafficking and or exploitation. And then we have our Freedom Center for women who are victims of human trafficking, exploitation, exiting prostitution, and are a part of any of the vulnerable populations that lead to trafficking, um, not having food, unhoused, domestic violence, sexual abuse. And so one thing that, um, how should I word this? This is my ADHD. It just kicked in. Say that question again.
So how the safety part, like we talked about, so you talked about the first week when they walk in to
Okay,
Mona's
yeah.
house. So
So
we're
that
talking
first week
about
is
safety and being
so it's
loved. Yeah.
stability.
Yeah.
That first week
Stability.
is called stability, and it's built on the principles of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And so we do a needs assessment, like what is it that you need? And let's do the real work to get all those things done. Because again, people can't heal when they don't feel safe. And
Mm,
so a lot of times, according to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, the first thing is your physiological needs. Can I have air? Can I have clothing, food? And then now that I have these things, am I safe in this environment? Because you can still have all those things and still not be safe.
right.
And so what we're learning is that like when people are safe, then they let down those those walls
Yeah.
and the
Start
things
to
that will
lean in a
prevent
little.
people from going out. And then as those walls go down, so does the self-sabotage, so does the self-doubt, so does the
Hmm.
imposter syndrome, so does all the things that that may have been built around you just to protect you.
Hmm.
Like it was a defense mechanism.
Yeah.
And so now you let us in and now you're able to really receive love.
Yeah. Wow. So, so tell, while I have you on here, because I think for a lot of people, human trafficking, those kind of things is always in some other city, not theirs. Some other
Yeah.
town, not theirs. Some other community, not theirs. Somebody they don't, they're not in my church, right? They don't even go to church, right? Help us understand just the magnitude of what we're dealing with here and how we can actually become advocates um, even no matter where we're at.
Number one, it's closer than you think, especially if like you're a person of faith.
Mm.
Individuals who identify as having some sort of faith are the largest consumers of individuals who are part of the sex trade. Whether it's a trafficking victim, somebody in prostitution, porn, escort services, and different things like that.
All right.
For
So, okay.
people,
Wait. Say that again, because you went
people are
really.
fake by the number one consumers of the sex trade. Period. Just they are.
That's just
Um,
heartbreaking.
Human trafficking is the one thing that if you get in, your chances of ever getting out are slim to none. With over um with over 50 million victims worldwide, still less than 1% are ever freed. So if you get in, you may not make it out alive, which is why we do so much preventative work. We do so much legislative work. We do
Mm,
so much confrontation, and in a way that I think that's fueled by love and grace, because sometimes people don't know that they're the problem. You don't know that your porn addiction is the problem. You don't know that when you go out of town with your friends and y'all just hire some strippers to have a good time, or y'all just want to go to the strip club and you just like, well, I don't really care about the dancers. They just have the best wings. You're fueling an industry that's keeping people enslaved.
Mm,
And then you don't even understand it, but psychologically you're normalizing the sex trade. And in time and it seems like the only time people care is if it's their daughter.
mm,
And so then you're just like, oh wait, like I don't want my daughter to be doing this, but that is still somebody else's daughter.
yeah.
And so when we bring it home, when we try to bring that message home, well, right now we're working on a short docu-series called Fuel. And it'll just be a couple of short episodes where you get to understand how you might be fueling, not just the sex industry, but also all of human trafficking. So for people who love fast fashion, you're not asking yourself, well, how are you able to buy all of this stuff for $40?
Mm,
That means somebody somewhere is in a sweatshop not getting paid, not getting paid. They're probably in some kind of debt bondage or labor trafficking, but because you want to look nice.
yeah.
You don't want to, and you're on a budget because of inflation. All of these things that
Yeah.
are like our high taxes, all these things fuel this. And so, what I try to get people to understand is human trafficking isn't just something that's happening overseas. It's not just something that's happening in your neighborhood. It probably could be happening in your house, depending on what you watch on your TV or computer or phone screen.
Mm,
And again, some people don't know that they're part of the problem, and so I think that the reason why I always specifically really kind of also talk about pornography is because it normalizes the commodification of human bodies, which is why human trafficking is still the second largest crime on the planet, second only to drug trafficking, and ahead of weapons trafficking. But I think if we understand how we could potentially be fueling this industry, we may get to a place in our walk and in our lives, and as leaders of ourselves to say, you know what, I'm going to make this executive decision not to let my vice outweigh my values.
mm,
And so, yes,
hmm.
this is my vice. It's something that it pleases my flesh and it's offering this temporary satisfaction. But the value system I have is that nobody should be bought or sold.
Yeah.
Because
Wow.
even if you're watching porn, there is absolutely no filter that says willing and unwilling. It says black, white, big, short, fat, all these different things, but it doesn't say willing and unwilling.
Mm,
And you don't have the eye to be able to tell if that's somebody that really wants to do that or not.
yeah.
And so, um, I definitely would encourage people, like for our organization, we do a free training every single week. I mean, every
Mm,
single month. We have a 1 hour training. And for those who really want to know, like, this is human trafficking, but tell me, Kelly, for real, how does it happen? What
yeah.
are the pathways? That's a 4 hour training that I do.
Mm,
And so I take you through all the social determinants of health. I take you through ACE scores, that stands for adverse childhood experiences, and how high ACE scores, what somebody's life was like before the age of 18, how that can pretty much dictate what's going to happen to them in life. Like
wow.
what direction are they going to go in? Unless something intervenes and interrupts that pattern, they're going in a certain direction. And unless we do something about it, that's where they'll be.
Mm,
But it's the only crime on the planet where if you get in, you might not ever get out.
wow. That is sobering. Um, I know that you are very involved in the community. You're a leader in the community. Um, I know that you have, I forget what it is. What's your talking about preventive? You're you are mentoring young girls.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that because I think that's when I read about that and hear about that, it's such a powerful and beautiful thing.
So I believe that if it's offense and defense.
Mm,
I got tired of playing defense all the time, and
yeah.
I wanted to take control of the ball. And so I asked myself, well, how do you save women? I think that you do it by empowering girls.
Mm,
And so my program, one of my best friends, Lisa Lickers Ricks, she started this group called the Young Women's Empowerment Academy. She's from Buffalo, but she moved to Harrisburg, and she started this group there. And I would see it online, and I'm just looking at it like, that's so cool, that's so cool. And then the phone calls that we were getting at Project Mother's House they just kept coming. The girls were just younger and younger and younger. And I'm like, well, I can't house children. We don't house children,
Mm.
right? You have to be an adult woman in order to live in this program and so in this residence. And so I talked to Lisa and I said, like, Lisa, would you mind if I open a chapter here in Buffalo? And she's like, girl, I've been wanting to do that. And I just didn't have anybody to do it. And so I said that I would open a chapter of the Young Women's Empowerment Academy here in Buffalo, New York.
Mm.
And what I've done since is I've developed a curriculum that's nationwide now. You can be an empowered girl from any like anywhere.
Wow.
We have Zoom, but in Buffalo we have a local chapter that's almost 120 girls.
No kidding.
And we take, yeah, and we
Wow.
started with like four or five girls, I think.
That's
Um,
incredible.
and so we're just taking over our landlord's building, man. We just keep growing and growing.
I
So now we
love
have a
it.
literacy room, a podcast and multimedia and tutoring room. We have our regular center, our room for instruction, um, arts and arts and esteem center. But again, like these are girls from very vulnerable populations. So number one, they're part of vulnerable populations to be trafficked because they're all girls of color. Most parents are still under the poverty level. They are girls, and there's a lot of statistics that are out there that says who these girls will grow up to be, and we're not denying the statistics. We're just adamant about changing them.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so we pour in a lot of work. So these girls are civically engaged. We've taken them overseas to Tanzania, safaris in the Serengeti. We're getting ready. We take them to college and culture tours so they understand their histories from all the way from Atlanta all the way to like New York. And so we teach them public speaking. We have an entrepreneur academy part of it where they become authors and write books and they get to sell their books.
Mm.
So we have 30, 60 plus. So this on May 9th will be up to 120 authors. So we did 30 the first year, we did 30 again the second year, and this year we're doing 60.
Wow. That's
So,
so
and their books
powerful.
will be
Wow.
featured at the Buffalo Black Caucus. It's called the Black Girl Book Fair.
Talk
And
about
so,
changing identity, helping them
yeah.
get rooted in who they are. That's amazing. Kelly, I know it was a few years ago, but you did something pretty amazing. Uh, you did a little hike.
A little, just a little hike, just a 902-mile hike.
Right. This lady, like she got some dog in her. Like I don't I can't it was crazy, but you did the Freedom, was it, what was the official name? The Freedom Walk?
Free them walk. Yep.
Free Them Walk, that's correct.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Started here in Buffalo. I
No,
remember
we
being,
y'all
well,
sent us off in
we
Buffalo. It
sent
started
you
in
off.
Lynchburg,
That's what I
Virginia,
was going to say. Sent you off. You guys went to Lynchburg, Virginia, and you walked all the way from Lynchburg to,
to
excuse
Buffalo,
me,
and it
to
took us about
Buffalo.
50 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
T-
so we walked along the Underground Railroad, retracing the steps of Harriet Tubman, Henry Box Brown, William and Ellen Craft, and who were the original trafficking victims in this country. And
mm,
so people bought and sold for labor, bought and sold for sex, bought and sold for medical experimentation, and bought and sold for entertainment. I'm 40 years old, but I'm still only the third generation of my family to not be born on a plantation. So that means that Kelly, who's 40, my father, Warren, who's 75, and my grandmother, who's deceased, would be almost 100. We were the only people born free.
mm.
And so a lot of times people are like, oh, that's so slavery is so far away and all this
Yeah.
over. It's not.
Three
Like I'm
generations.
40. I'm
Wow.
40 and I'm only the third generation of my family to be born free.
Wow.
So
Well, and I'd like to tie it to this because it was because you did that for a purpose, and you have a quote and you say, "Let us not be found guilty of waiting too late to care." And I love that. That's so powerful. Where did that come from? And all the things from that Freedom Walk to what you're doing, what you've done globally. Where did that come from and what does that mean to you? Like I remember you speaking at church and you said, I put my yes on the table, right?
hmm
So
Yeah.
where
That was
did
birthed
that
out of
come from?
frustration.
Say that
It was
again.
birthed out of frustration. It was birthed out of frustration,
Mm,
and it was birthed out of frustration. And then right after my frustration, I felt like God was like, "Okay, you good? You frustrated? Okay, now what you gonna do about it?" And I always liken it to like this story about when I was living in Lynchburg, Virginia. I just my life was just changed so radically there that I just was recruiting all my family members like, "Please move here, your life will change. Please move here, your life will change." And then one of those people ended up being my little cousin Selena, and I call her all her children, my niece and nephew that were young. Camille was only 2 years old. And I realized that, okay, well, maybe it's not a bright idea for all 10 of us to be living in a two-bedroom apartment. Let me go get us a house. And so we moved into the house, and we had this family tradition. On Saturdays, we just binge watch television. We did nothing but just be together. And I remember telling Camille, hey, she was probably like 8 or 9 at the time. And I said, Camille, can you go upstairs and get something off my dresser? And Camille's like a really obedient girl. So she went upstairs, and it's like a 139-year-old house. And you could hear like her little pitter patter going upstairs. And the commercial went off, and the television show came back on, and the commercial came back on. And I'm like, Camille, like, what are you doing? She's like, I'm still looking for it. I said, it's right there on the dresser. I couldn't understand why she couldn't see, like, why she couldn't find it. And so then the commercial went back off, television show, the whole thing repeats. And so now I'm yelling upstairs. I'm like, Camille, what are you doing? She yelled back downstairs, like this little cheerful, joyful voice, like, Auntie Kelly, I'm still looking for it. I'm still looking for it. And so out of frustration, I get up and now I'm walking upstairs, and my little pitter patter sound more like a pound, pound, pound. And so I go into the bedroom, and I'm just ready to let Camille have it.
yeah.
Like, girl, what are you doing? And I open up the door in my room, and I burst into laughter because I had just moved into that house, and I had not yet had my friend Sean come over and connect the light switch on the wall to the ceiling fan. And she was too small to reach the light on the ceiling fan. So here Camille is trying to be
No.
obedient to my voice, but she's looking for it in the
In
dark.
the dark.
And I
Oh my
believe that God
gosh.
spoke to me in that moment. He said, Kelly, you're mad at people for not being able to see things in the dark. Your assignment is to turn on the light. And so
Woo.
that is why I'm so big on outreach and education and giving people the grace to not know what they don't
Mm,
know.
yeah.
And it's not their responsibility, but it's my responsibility to spread this word. And if I have to do it come hell or high water, if I gotta walk, crawl, or scream or shout, I still have to get the message out because people's literal lives and freedom are at stake
Mm,
right now. And people don't understand, and I didn't understand how even I was fueling the industry because I was a porn watcher, and that came from probably like being overly exposed to sexual actions as a kid. Like
mm,
not from my parents, they didn't do anything wrong, but I had siblings, and
mm-hmm.
they weren't being, and I was the youngest, and I remember I used to look in, I'm like, oh shoot, what's that? And I didn't know what that was, and then just I was exposed
Yeah.
to that so early that I just kept going
Yeah.
until I realized that
Normalized
I'm
it.
hurting somebody,
Mm,
and I had to lay down that vice
mm,
because my values outweighed it. And so I believe that my assignment and that quote, like, I don't want people to wait until there's a body in the ground to start caring.
mm.
Because
Yeah.
once that air leaves out their lungs, it's too late.
Mm,
And sometimes we just wait until it's too late to care.
yeah.
And so I want people to care now.
I love that. Building bridges, turning on lights. That's
Yeah.
seems to be what you do. As we wrap up, thank you so much. Man, we blew through this conversation fast. If there's a leader listening right now who sees a problem in their world and keeps waiting for someone else to solve it, what do you say to them?
Number one, you are alive for such a time as this.
Mm,
You are born at the time that you are needed the most. And if you see the burden, if you see the problem, then maybe that's your burden to bear.
mm,
Now, it doesn't mean that it's your whole burden to solve because sometimes people say this. They say, well, if you see a problem and you don't have a solution for it, then don't say anything. And so people feel intimidated because they see the
right.
problem, but they don't have the solution. But those are two different positions. There are people who are assigned to find risks,
Yeah.
and to see the issues. And there are people who are brought in as consultants and captains and
Hmm.
coaches to be able to navigate you out of the problem.
Yeah.
And so if you see it, find out what your position is with it. And again, if you see it and you feel it, then there must be something that you can contribute to the to that solution.
Mm.
And get out your own head, get out your way. I
Yeah.
moved all around the world into different countries, just solving problems.
Yeah. Kelly, as we wrap up, what has this cost you? Like this when like I know like you have served the world, you've served the city, you are passionate about this, but anything that we do as leaders that is meaningful and significant and I think life changing, it costs us something, right? And you don't have to be necessarily super specific, but what does it cost you to be a leader that is serving your community like this?
I think it's cost me everything comfortable.
Mm,
Everything comfortable. I believe that there will be a day where I will experience some of the comfort and the luxuries that other people have. However, um, I have had to make sure I'm not just a leader, but I'm also a builder. I know we
mm,
had this conversation earlier, and there's a different um experience that people who are building something that doesn't exist, there's a cost
mm.
that we have to pay.
Yeah.
And I didn't have big dollar funders behind me when I did it. I just had my mom and my dad and my family. And I had people who just believed in me, but financially they couldn't contribute. And so I've always, well, not always, but I have, since I've done this work, I have been uncomfortable.
Mm,
I've been uncomfortable. I've had to say things that I don't always want to say. I've had to speak truth to power.
mm.
I've had to, in some circles, be blackballed maybe, because I'm fighting against something that people glorify,
Yeah.
right? Nobody wants to be the girl that dampens the party. Like, don't y'all go to that strip club? Don't y'all pay for that sex? Don't y'all watch that porn? Sometimes I could be seen as a Debbie Downer, and so I think fighting this fight and leading, it has put me on the front lines so that other people, and I've had to experience blows that and take them and swallow them so that my team and the people that I serve don't have to feel them.
Mm,
Um, I had to get I had to get comfortable with being told no,
mm.
more no's than yeses.
Yeah.
But then also it cost me. I think the thing that it cost me the most is the plans that I have for myself.
Mm,
Because how I envision my life at 40 is not necessarily the life that I'm living right now.
yeah.
But I'm still building and I'm still serving, and I know I'm called to this form of leadership, and I'm called to this purpose, and it'll all pay off eventually.
Yeah.
And it's paying off now. Every time somebody ring that bell, it's paying off.
Mm,
But me as Kelly,
right.
Diane, I've had to make very, very extreme sacrifices, especially financially.
Hmm.
Especially financially. I tell everybody I don't hide it at all. Like, I still live in my parents' third floor because I needed to make sure that I could pay my staff. And it was years I was doing this work that I was not getting paid. And or when I did start getting paid, it wasn't a livable wage. And it would have to be days that Jaleesa would say, "Hey Kelly, we can't afford to pay you this week.
Mm,
Jaleesa, we can't Kelly, we can't afford to pay you this month. Kelly, we're gonna pay you eventually. Maybe we gotta do some more fundraisers or something." But then my parents were able to cover me during this time because this is visionary work. I believe this is God ordained work. And I mean in 2026. I've been getting paid every week since then. This is the first time it's ever happened.
wow.
And
Wow.
so eventually, if you are a leader and you're listening, stay till you get to the good part.
Mm,
So a lot of people quit too soon. You
yeah.
quit right when you're there. And I love what you said, leadership. What did you say? Leadership
Is a
is
stewardship.
temporary, it's stewardship, and it's
It's
temporary.
temporary and will be held accountable.
Because if you do this thing right, if you do this thing right, not just being a leader of your own life, right? But if you're a
Mhm.
leader in a corporation or a
Yeah.
leader of anything where you got followers, if you do it right, you shouldn't be the leader forever.
Yeah. Right.
It's called sustainability.
Yes. Yeah.
And so,
Because you're
but
not
yeah,
just a builder, you're a developer,
that,
right?
yeah,
And so and I see this. I know you're a builder, but you're also a developer.
yes.
And you're also a lover of people. And Kelly, just thank you for just your story, for being a part of the fabric of Buffalo, having
Mm.
impact in spaces, not just in our community, but all around the world. So I want to celebrate you, girl, and just champion you. Um, as we wrap up, if this conversation has moved you today, I want you to do three things. I want you to share this episode with one
Yeah.
leader who needs to hear it, and then visit projectmonashouse.com. Is that right?
Yes. Project Mona's house.
Projectmonashouse.com to learn
Don't
more
forget the
about
S.
what's that?
Don't forget the S. Sometimes people
Yes.
type in Project Mona house. It's
Yes.
Mona's house.
Mona's house, all one word.com to learn more about Kelly's work and consider supporting it. And sit with this question before your head hits the pillow tonight. What painful chapter have I been running from that might actually be my greatest assignment? Think about that. Process that. What is it that's been holding you back? Maybe some trauma, some chapter in your life that's hold you back. But just hearing Kelly's story today about how her past kind of fueled and opened up the door for how she's helping literally hundreds and thousands of people now. That could be your story. So, hey, thank you, Kelly. Thank you for listening. And until next week, take your next best step, and we'll see you back here next week.